The Springboks have put in a much better display against Italy in the second test in Gqeberha, or Port Elizabeth as it is still known on the N2. And what's more, it's a nice birthday present for me as well. But it's still not quite what we have come to expect from our world champions. And in this episode, you are going to get a front row seat as I break down what was good, what was better, and what still falls short of expectations. Before kickoff, there was a beautiful gesture for Willie Le Roux on the occasion of his 100th test. Running out by himself, there was a lovely banner with his face on either side, reading "Dankie," thank you, enkosi. Another thing before kickoff was the delegation meeting the players before the match. It included our Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie and SARU President Mark Alexander. I'm not entirely sure who the other two were, but I think it's so unnecessary. Greeting the players before the match should be reserved for the president of the country or the king, queen or emperor in the cases of some other countries, like the UK and Japan, for example. So if it's not Cyril Ramaphosa in our case, or say Charles III when England are playing, then it's something I think we can do without. It's just an exercise in self-importance in my view. Right, so we kick off. And what a weird way to start the match. Manie Libbok with a chip kick to kick off, which Andre Esterhuizen collects. It only went about 4 meters, which of course meant we'd have to scrum because it didn't go 10 meters. So we were penalized. It was an Italian scrum. And it's a shame it never took place because we couldn't set properly, so the Italians escaped, so to speak. But I loved the smirk on Dr. Rassi Erasmus's face. But the intent and the plan was clear. We wanted to show them who was boss. But we would get our chance in the 4th minute after a Jasper Wiese knock-on, which actually led to a non-try by Pieter-Steph du Toit. How did this first scrum of the match go? First attempt, collapsed. Second attempt, we pushed them hard but also collapsed. Arguably a bit of over-eagerness, and so a penalty to the Azzurri. 2 or so minutes later, another scrum after Willie Le Roux knocked on in the tackle by Ross Vincent, and I'd say that we saw parity in the first full scrum of the match. Italy would have been happy with that, let's be honest. But in yet another early knock-on, this time by an Italian, we would get the put-in, and again it collapsed. Although the Italians were deemed to be the culprits. No matter though, as we broke away, moved the ball to Edwin van der Merwe, who made some serious meters before passing to Makazole Mapimpi, who couldn't quite finish it himself, and so put Grant Williams through for the first try of the evening. Manie Libbok dragged his conversion, so it was 5-0. In the 16th minute, we had our second try, another scrum that didn't yield any major result. Saw Williams get the ball out quickly, and it was pretty old school actually, as the ball moved its way down the line to the right wing, Edwin van der Merwe, who finished in the corner expertly.
Class players, the class wingers we have in that position. Has he done enough this time? Oh, happy days!
The only negative is it presented Libbok with the most difficult of kicks for a right footer from the right-hand side touchline, and he sent it wide. Jasper Wiese was then red carded in the 22nd minute for a headbutt on Danilo Fischetti. Doc looked shocked in the coach's box, but I'm afraid you can't do that. Wiese and Fischetti got into a little bit of a tussle. It appeared to be handbag stuff, really. And I'm guessing Fischetti must have said something to Jasper to provoke him. Regardless, you cannot headbutt an opponent. And so we were down to 14 men. And that makes it very difficult for us to put in a proper performance after that. Because once you're down to 14 men for the rest of the match, it becomes a case of adjusting and game management. But at the same time, what an opportunity for Italy. They've never beaten the Springboks in South Africa, and now they would get to play against us for an hour with a man advantage. So the initial solution was to just go 7v8 in the scrums. Well, that only lasted 1 scrum. Next scrum, Marco van Staden went to 8th man and Andre Esterhuizen slotted in at flank. And that perhaps ironically the Italians were penalised for illegal scrummaging. A couple of minutes later, we saw Manuel Zuliani and Fischetti doing great work at the breakdown for Italy. I told you guys during the Six Nations, Fischetti is not only a good scrummager, but also strong at the breakdown. He jackals well, even though in this case, the man who eventually won the penalty for them was Zuliani. Turns out Fischetti is also good at riling up opposition players and getting them sent off. Not a bad guy to have in the team then. Now I'm guessing the red card affected our boys. The next attacking move we saw a weak pass from Manie Libbok and then Willie Le Roux's kick pass attempt going out directly. I think the word Doc used last week was frustrated. And after half an hour in GQ, I was feeling more of that frustration. And at that same time, Thomas the Tank du Toit was replaced by Nche. It didn't appear to be an injury replacement, but we've seen Rassie and previously Jock Ninaber hook players in the first half of matches before. I think the reason became very apparent immediately. The very first scrum not only saw us destroy them, but would lead to Van der Merwe's second try of the evening. Nche, the best loose-head prop in the world, immediately making an impact. Manie Libbok was never going to miss from right in front, and they had also brought up 100 career test points for the fly half. Now listen, we have to talk about Grant Williams and Canaan Moodie. Firstly, Williams is our best scrum half. His passing is slick, he has good pace, I think he kicks well, and his quickness in arriving at the breakdown and then speedily providing service to his backline is second to none in South Africa. Here, he breaks away from the ruck, beats a man and puts through Moodie, who beats two defenders and forces his way over the try line. Moodie is a top right wing in our country, a top right wing at that, but we've heard for a while now that his future could actually be at outside centre. We were getting a chance to see him go at 13 here against quality opposition, and this was his first real opportunity to show what he can do. And he showed pace and power. Very impressive indeed. So, 24-0 at half-time. We saw glimpses of brilliance. We were mostly solid, not perfect, but the intensity was there, and after a bit of adjusting after the Wiese red card, the boys settled and got back to duty. As for Italy, they showed the same physicality we saw in Pretoria. Their courage, guts and determination was a signature of this series and very commendable. I thought they competed ferociously at the breakdown again this week. Zuliani, probably their best player in the first 40 here, or perhaps Fischetti, but Gonzalo Quesada would have liked a lot of that, except of course the score. And speaking of Fischetti, he won his team another breakdown penalty early in the second half under tremendous Springbok pressure. If you haven't been able to tell, I am an admirer of this man. Danilo Fischetti, what a player. And then we were down to 13 men. Wilco getting a yellow for head contact on Sebastian Negri. Head contact, not a headbutt. Louw, to my eyes, making no effort to lower himself, which is not something you are going to get away with. Can I just say that Negri appeared to lean into it, but that is seldom going to help in these situations now. Any head contact is a yellow card now. And by the way, it was also under review, which meant the Boks were in serious danger of being down to 13 for 90% of the second half. It meant Asenathi Ntlabakanye was on for his Springbok test debut. He would obviously go back off when Wilco came back on, and then at a later moment, Ntlabakanye actually came on for the rest of the match. But it also meant we were going to indeed have to go with 7 in the scrum, because I don't think we have another hybrid player that can move in from the back line. And just as I was singing Fischetti's praises, he was yellow carded for coming in from the side. So it just shows no one is perfect. Edwin van der Merwe might have had a hat-trick in the 50th minute, but the Centurion Willie Le Roux was blown up for a forward pass. The Boks were playing advantage after an Italian offside, so a bit of a mess all round. Now I want to tell you about Malcolm Marx's 51st minute try which followed. We had a penalty from that Italian offside. Manie kicked it out, and from the 5-meter line out, the ball was given quickly to Williams, who put the backline into action just as quickly. But from that breakdown, we saw Williams pass high to Ruan Norkia, basically simulating a line-out. And then what happened as a result is another maul is formed, but essentially in the middle of the park, and yes, we drove our way over for the try. We saw that same move late in the first half. It didn't lead to a try then, but this time it did. Magnificent innovation. And you could see the delight on Doc's face in the coach's box. And so in the 56th minute, Sasha Feinberg, Ngome Kobus Reinach, Ethan Hooker, and another Kobus, Wiese, were on. Great to see debuts for Hooker and Wiese. Just a real shame that Kobus couldn't share the moment with his brother Jasper. Willie Le Roux was one of those who came off, and I think, to be perfectly honest, he has had better tests in the green and gold. I thought he did a few things nicely. He played a role in one of the tries. He had one or two influential kicks. But I also counted a few mistakes, and so I can't say he had what you would call a 5-star performance. But nevertheless, 100 test matches is a wonderful achievement, and Willie Le Roux will go down as a Springbok legend. And what it also meant is that Sasha would be the one to go to fullback in this instance. Evan Roos was also on the field for the Boks. So did the bomb squad make a bigger impact this week compared to last week? Early answer was no. Jan-Hendrik Wessels missing 2 of his first 3 lineouts, for example. Now that's just one element. I don't think we necessarily saw a drop in intensity or effort by the Boks, which is important. And the Azzurri actually enjoyed an extended period of time in possession and were making meters. And that put us under a bit of pressure, which was actually good to see, because we do want to be tested. And as I thought that, the Italians lost a line out on their own throw, so shooting themselves in the foot, I suppose. And yes, I think we did lose a bit of shape in the second half, not as much as we saw at Loftus. Perhaps similar, but no, I would say better. I think this week was better. But what was similar, if you looked at the scoreline at half-time, you knew the match was effectively over as a contest. But we still want to see high levels of performance. Did we on this occasion? I think it fell short. But I also think it was much better than last week at Loftus. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. To an extent, you might even say chalk and cheese. But I'm not sure if I would go that far. I felt just like last week we lost some structure after the bomb squad came on. And sure enough, when we did return to more structured play, Makazole Mapimpi ran in for one of the easiest tries he has scored for his country.
Penalty advantage to the green and gold, and Reinach set it free for Andre Esterhazen. Libbok sent it to Sasha Feinberg in Gqeberha. Makazole Mapimpi with the most confident try of the evening.
And there was time for one more try. Wessels going over. It was another line out, maul, drive, and the bomb squad hooker was the man to go over in the corner in the tightest of fashion.
Waiting for that advance from the rolling maul of the Springboks. Jan-Hendrik Wessels corkscrewing for the line.
The player is not in touch. You can award the try.
Okay, so the grounding is good.
Final score 45-0 and a clean sheet in Gqeberha, or Port Elizabeth, as it is still known on the N2. 7 tries, 7 unanswered tries for our world champions. And worth pointing out, Libbok eventually slotted 5 from 7, including 5 in a row. At international level, 5 out of 7 is about the minimum standard, I would say. So you cannot complain about Manie's goal kicking today. And if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed he seems to have changed his run-up a little bit as well. He has shortened it. Not quite like the way Percy Montgomery had it, where basically Percy took 1 step and then kicked. But Manie is now down to 3 steps before he kicks. And I think that helps to improve his overall control. But we shall see how it goes in the next few test matches. before we reserve or before we make some kind of judgment call. But it does look, the early signs anyway, appear to be that things have improved on that front, which is great to see because his general gameplay is excellent. But like I've said before, if Manie is your number one goal kicker, then I cannot have him in my team. This is the way I see it. But if Manie is not my number one goal kicker, i.e. the fullback is kicking, the wing, the centre, whatever, then I'm happy to have Manie in the side. But if Manie can achieve international standard average goal kicking, i.e. 80%, then I'm happy to have him in the side. You won't hear me complain. My overall feeling is that if we had seen this overall performance last week, we would have largely been saying things like, not bad for our first test of the season. We did well in many areas, and there's plenty of room for improvement too. Now, I guess when you factor in all the changes Doc made and how many players were making their first appearance of the season for us, then you could say, well, it was their first outing, and therefore it wasn't bad. And it's nice to know there's room for improvement. I'm going to give the Springboks a 7 out of 10 for this performance. We were much better than in Pretoria, but I think we still made too many mistakes, and I think that the Jasper Wiese red card didn't help at all. If we had 15 on the field for the majority of the match, it may well have been an even bigger victory. So in that sense, I don't want to be too harsh, bearing things like that in mind. What I do want to see now is a big win over Georgia next week at the Mbombela Stadium. And man of the match? Well, I thought Marco van Staden had a great game. I was very happy with Grant Williams too. In fact, at halftime, I was leaning towards Williams, but obviously there's another 40 minutes to come. And I think if I factor everything in, I'm going to have to go with Edwil van der Merwe. Not every day of the week that I pick a backline player as my man of the match, guys, as you know, if you've been watching this channel for a while. He scored 2 tries, but he also harassed the Italian defence in the air, which was a joy to watch. And he also contributed a couple of telling tackles too. But what do you think? Are you satisfied that this was much better from the Springboks? Or do you feel there are still more questions than answers at this stage? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, why not help me out with a super thanks birthday present? It's the heart button with a $sign inside of it. My late grandmother once gave me 2,000 Rand for my birthday, so let that be the standard. Just kidding. But I'd be very grateful for anything you feel like giving me on my special day. The Springboks have already made it great with a victory. The Springboks also made it great with a victory in 2003 over the Wallabies, and perhaps most famously in 2008 by beating the All Blacks in Dunedin. Ricky January will forever be an important person in my life. And now you can help me out too. How about a little birthday present? Super thanks, right? If you're not yet ready to support me in that manner, you can also just crock roll the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And earlier this year, I did a video about the Centurion, Willie Le Roux, wondering if this might be his last year. You can check that video out over here, and if you've already seen it, I would recommend this video I did at full time, giving my immediate reaction and top 5 hot takes. That's over here, and I'll see you next time.